So, how's it going? Good, 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 excellent. So, last couple of weeks we've been telling a story from the Believe It book for Loving Everyone.
It says Bible twice.
It does, because it says Bible and then it says Believe It book for Loving Everyone. That's what it's done. No, I didn't. It's real. It's completely real. And so we've been telling this story. We've been telling this story about the beginning, how God created everything, and then God created human beings, and there were these two human beings named Adam and Eve. And what did they do last week? Do you remember? Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
They made a choice, is what they did.
They made their favorite fruit.
That's right. They made a choice, and it turned out it was his favorite fruit. They ate from the tree that they weren't supposed to. It was her. You totally remember the story, don't you? Yeah, he still liked apples, right? Yeah, awesome. Okay. So there's more to the story, because, you know, I got to read the rest of this book for you, right? Probably this morning. Yeah, and look, the print gets smaller. Yeah. No? Okay. I'm just going to read the next bit of the story, though. Okay, so you remember where we were, right? They'd eaten some of the fruit, and they decided to walk off to the, go find the apple trees, but they were going to go a different way. So, God was missing Adam and Eve a little bit, so he went to look for them in the garden. But he didn't see them because they'd taken a different path, and it was very interesting and full of new things, and they were still exploring it. So God waited patiently for them to come back. That's a sentence we hear lots in the Bible. God waited patiently for them to come back. And when they did, God knew something was different right away. Eve had decided that she didn't like the sun being so bright in her eyes, so she found a really huge leaf from a tree and made it into a hat to cover her head and shade her eyes. Adam found the path a little rough, so he found a big branch off a tree and he made it into a walking stick. When God saw them, God said, "Where have you guys been?" And Adam replied, "We went to the apple trees because they're my favorite fruit, but we went a different way and we saw so many different things and it got a little tiring, so I made this cool walking stick to help me." "And I made this," Eve added excitedly, "because the sun was in my eyes. I call it a hat." "Wait a minute," said God. "What kind of fruit?" "Apples," Eve replied. "They're his favorite, but I like the new fruit better." "Shh," said Adam quickly. But it was too late. God heard and said to Eve, "They're his what?" "His favorite," answered Eve. God looked at them again more closely this time. There was a long pause, and then God said, "What have you done? Right before you chose which fruit was your favorite, what did you do?" Eve and Adam looked at each other and had a funny feeling. They weren't absolutely certain, but they were pretty sure they were in trouble. I think we're all familiar with that feeling. Not looking at anybody in particular. I'll just look at Lori. Yeah. "We saw there was a new tree," said Eve, "and the fruit looked good, so we ate some." "Wasn't there a sign by the tree?" asked God. "Yes," said Eve, suddenly realizing why God wasn't happy. But the snake said I should try it. The snake said it would be okay." "Eve," said God, with that tone I think we all also know. But Adam, thinking he must be in trouble too, jumped in with, I didn't want to try it. I didn't. Eve made me. It's not my fault." "And the snake made me," said Eve quickly, "so it's not my fault either." And God sighed a big sigh. "It's no one's fault," God began. "The snake didn't make you, Eve. You chose to eat the fruit. And Adam, don't blame Eve. You were there and you too chose to eat the fruit. No one made you. You each did it yourself." And God paused, and finally he said, "You have free will." Adam and Eve looked at each other, and then they looked around to see if they could see this free will thingy that he was talking about. And then Adam said, "What's free will?"
Mary just said that.
"Well," God told them, free will means that you can choose for yourself. You can decide what you want to do on your own. You don't need to be told what to do. Oh, cool, said Adam. But Eve looked really concerned. Okay, she said, but how will we know what to decide? Well, said God, you need to find out all you can, and then you think about it and you make a decision. Remember when you talked to the snake? The snake told you things you needed to know, and you had already seen the fruit and the sign. Then you thought about it, and you made a choice. Right, said Adam, and we really enjoyed that fruit. Yeah, agreed Eve. But you saw the sign, didn't you? Said God. The sign said, don't, in really big letters. When you decide things for yourself, things happen, and you have to live with what happens next, good or bad. But how will we know what's good and bad? Said Eve. That's part of how we learn from making decisions for ourselves. And there'll be people who know lots of stuff that will teach you. And I'll always be there. Sometimes you'll get a feeling, just a feeling that something's right or wrong, and that's me. Sometimes you'll just know that you need to do something just because it's the right thing to do. That'll be me. Sometimes other people will teach you and show you, and that'll be me. Sometimes when you think you're alone, you'll just know that you're not. Because that's me, too. Because I'll always be with you. I'm having a feeling right now, said Adam, that things are going to be really different. They are, said God. The whole world is going to be different for you now. You have to leave this garden and go and take care of the earth for me. And for you. And for everyone that's going to live in the world from now on. And Adam and Eve headed out of the garden on a new path. The further they went, the more they both thought how much the world looked just like the garden they lived in. The sky was blue, the grass was green, there was day and night, there were birds and air and animals all around. But there was also something different about it. It just seemed so interesting. So I'm going to give this book to Lori, and she's going to read the rest of it for you downstairs. Because really interesting stuff happens. No? You want to discover for yourself?
No, we don't want to do studying.
No, you don't want to learn. But you know what's really cool? What's really cool about the stories that we have from our Believe It book for loving everyone is that we learn from the stories. We learn from the experiences that we have in the stories, and what people do, and how they behaved, and how they treated each other. And so that's why the stories are so important. See, here's the beginning of Adam and Eve finding that things are different. Before, everything was just kind of the same. And now things are different. Like, look at all these people out here. Look at all these people out here. Aren't they all funny looking? Aren't they? I mean, really. I mean, they're all kind of interesting looking in their own way, but they're all different. Nobody's the same. I mean, some people might dress the same. I don't see that this morning, but some people might dress the same, but they're all different, right? The whole world is different, and that's what Adam and Eve suddenly saw. They didn't see that everything was the same. They suddenly saw that things were different. And you know what they did? They went to try and find out how things were different. They didn't get scared. They just went and found out. And that's what we have to do. That's what God wants us to do. God wants us to find out. So, you guys are going to go downstairs and do some really cool stuff after we sing a song with Lori. When you come back upstairs, I want you to talk to somebody you don't know in the congregation. Like, pick out one of these people. Pick out somebody right now. Don't pick Mary Ellen. Pick out somebody right now. Because you guys all know Mary Ellen, and she's too much fun. Pick out somebody you don't know, and then after the service, I want you to come up and introduce yourself to them and ask them what their favorite color is. That gives you a whole hour to think about it. Okay, more or less. Okay?